the minority leader has forgotten. I was in an aircraft with him someday, very, very late. And when the aircraft was breaking through the clouds, the turbulence was so much that everybody was shouting, "Oh God, oh Jesus, oh God, oh Allah." That's what was happening. He was there. He himself was shouting. Mr. Speaker, when soldiers are going to war and they are about to go and fight, those who are Christians go on their knees to pray to God. And those who are Muslims go on their knees and bow down to pray to Allah. Mr. Speaker, there is nothing more important to us as human beings to believe that there's somebody out there who created us. Is this budget, how much is captured in this budget? And we say that we should spend 80 million cedis on God, and people have a problem with it. I don't. Me and my family, the members on this side don't. And I want the Christian community to know from today that we don't.
This project is estimated to cost $382 million. Mr. Speaker, so far, the amount expended is 339 million Ghana cedis, not dollars. And the last speaker was saying that we have spent more than 30% as envisaged in the construction document. Mr. Speaker, 339 million Ghana cedis is nowhere near 10% of the project cost. So there is no overexpenditure in respect of the construction. Mr. Speaker, the National Cathedral is coming under the Monuments and Museums Board. Mr. Speaker, this is an edifice that will also provide us with the basic infrastructure for tourism as we expect our tourism potential to be harnessed. I want to end by also supporting the budget for this year's pilgrimage so that people from Ghana can also undertake this pilgrimage this year under the budget which we are passing today. So, Mr. Speaker, it is good that our Muslim brothers are in support of this project because we need to equalize and get also something out of the Ghanaian expenditure for our Christian brothers also.
Start by putting it on record that as an elder of a church and as a Bible-believing Christian, we on this side are not against the building of a cathedral. And this is what the Bible we believe in says to us. In Luke 14:28-30, is there anyone here planning to build a new house, in this case a cathedral, who doesn't first sit down to figure the cost so you know if you can complete it? If you only get the foundation laid, and Mr. Speaker, the Bible is so telling. The Bible knew Ghana will have a president called Akufo-Addo. This is what it says. If you only get the foundation laid and then run out of money, you are going to look pretty foolish. Everyone passing by will poke fun at you. Yes. He started something he couldn't finish. This is the word of the Lord. Don't you look foolish because you have only laid a foundation and run out of money. Mr. Speaker, this is not some church, this is the Bible. You don't go to church. In the Bible, God calls only one man, a man after his own heart. And that man was David, a man after God's own heart. A man that the finance minister aspires to be like in vain. But you see, Mr. Speaker, even when David wanted to build a temple for God, a man he called a man after his own heart. He said, you have blood on your hands, and for that sake, you cannot build me a temple. So he puts together the material for the temple for his son. Mr. Speaker, I end by remembering the lost 8 citizens who lost their lives in the 2020 elections. There is blood on their hand. Can we build a temple for God? Thank you very much, Dr.
Then you come here to defend the indefensible. One day, all of us, including Mr. Speaker, will appear before the throne of the Almighty God. That day, Mr. Speaker, several questions will be posed to us. Many of us will run away because of what we are doing today. We have a duty to protect lives. We have a duty to ensure.
Welcome back on the AM show. Time now for us to dig into our big stories, and we're starting it from the standpoint of the ruling administration, the NPP. Well, we're joined for a one-on-one conversation, just as we did yesterday, but this time it is with the communications director of the party, Richard Ahiagba, who joins the conversation as we talk everything related to the current administration, the economy, the performance of the city, the National Cathedral, among other salient matters of concern. Mr. Ahiagba, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining the conversation.
Thank you kindly.
I didn't hear your response.
I said thank you. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year in advance.
Thank you, and many happy returns to you and your listeners and viewers.
Right. Let's just start off from the NPP as a party. Where would you place the NPP as a party administratively? So I'm talking about you've elected new officials and all of that. And recently there's been a lot of talk, especially in respect of the NDC's appointment of Johnson Esiedun-Kessie as party chairman, Fifi Kwete as general secretary, among others. You held a press conference. You brought up a number of issues. We heard your party's CEO, John Kodia-Frimpong, speak to some of the issues. Where would you say the NPP is currently when it comes to its administrative leadership?
Oh, thank you very much. The New Patriotic Party is in itself recently gone through a process that the NDC also just finished over the weekend, and we've elected new leaders from the polling station all the way to the national level. Our national leadership, you've mentioned a few of them. They're led by Chairman Stephen JoyNews and the General Secretary, Justin Frimpong Kodia. They have been putting together the party, making sure that we are prepared and ready for the election in 2024. So where we are now, the party is being retooled, positioned, and ready for the election. And I think that we're in a good place.
You're in a good place. Talk has also, we spoke to some analysts, political watchers, just a few days ago, asking them about the viability of the different candidates from the two parties, since both of you have basically led the country since the Fourth Republic. Their team, that is the NDC's team, versus your team. And I've heard a lot of talk about that. Those we spoke to, academics among others, seem to suggest that the NDC's team is stronger than your team. How do you react to that?
Well, I mean, that's people's opinion. I don't see the basis for that comparison. There are two mutually exclusive political parties with different orientation and understanding, different approaches to political organization. The NDC organizes differently from how we organize. We appeal to Ghanaians more broadly from a place of ideas. The NDC does so from a propagandist, populist, extremely populist standpoint. So our approach to election and to governance, our ideologies are entirely different. So trying to compare the two would be an exercise of wanting to make apples look like oranges and compare them. There are no basis to do that comparison. But what is true, we can assess, is that when you look at the NDC leadership, which they just gone through putting in place, you'll see a crop of leaders whose outlook is brush, whose demeanor seem excessively hard in terms of their approach to politics. That roughness to the team they put in place is probably what people are looking at and saying that when you look at the demeanor of the NPP leadership, they are calmer, they are calculating, more strategic. And I think that is the comparison people are trying to do. But it's not a comparison of apples and apples. It's one of apples and oranges. I don't think that is a serious comparison that amounts to anything. But we can do it for political exercise.
Right. So you're suggesting that these academics, by the way, the likes of Dr. Kwame Asante, Dr. Alidu, among others, who have watched this space for decades, who know what these people can do, don't know what they're talking about. And again, you seem to suggest that the NDC operates on propaganda and others alone. Aren't you concerned? Because even if that were the case, propaganda, they have got so many terms from 1992 to 2000, then from 2008 to 2016. It would appear then that whatever it is they have up their sleeves does work for the Ghanaian voting public. Are you concerned?
Yeah, so certainly, let me be very clear. I'm in no way suggesting or casting a verdict on anybody's analysis. I'm only demonstrating a basis for comparison that I don't see.
Right.
To compare NDC leadership and NPP leadership, I don't see a scientific basis for that comparison. There's no equal measure for any results to say that on one side there is strong and the other is weak. What I want to say is that it's a good political exercise, but it's not a substantive exercise for which we want to engage more seriously. On the matter of the propaganda and whether or not it worked for the NDC, well, of course, they won elections, and so therefore it may have worked for them. But what the truth is that we have come to realize, which is the difference, if you like, in approach that we in the NPP are working to address and cure, is to properly understand the operation of the NDC. And I think that we've got our fingers on that now, because if you look at the election of my own brother, Fifi Kwete, whose history is a propaganda secretary of the NDC, tells us clearly what they are going to do. If you see the chairman,
which is what?
Sorry?
You say it tells clearly what they're going to do, which is what?
Which is they're just going to propagandize more and more and more. They're going to misrepresent the situation that we find ourselves in. They're going to concoct stories about what is it that is happening. They're not going to tell Ghanaians the truth. And in fact, they're not going to tell Ghanaians what they are capable of doing or what they will do. They will all be about blaming government and escalating situations in our country, trying to use violence and fear. That is going to be what they will do, because we know what my brother did as a propaganda secretary, much of which he has had to go to a vetting committee and recount. And so we know their approach. And what we are saying is that to counter what they offer, we are going to have to engage them. We're preparing ourselves to engage them in a battle of ideas, which we think that is the way forward for Ghana. And we'll invite Ghanaians to make a decision between the two who has a superior proposition to help Ghana develop.
You speak about propagandizing, as you put it. But the question some would ask is, with everything that is going on, we've made some inroads, and we'll have ample time to discuss that. We've made some inroads as far as the currency fluctuations are concerned. Our currency over the last 2 days has lost some ground, but a lot of ground that has been gained. Fuel prices were really high. We have made inroads there as well. Yesterday, I was interacting with Andre Japama-Mersa, Member of Parliament for 2nd D, who said that sometime in January, between the 10th and the 12th, we'll get our first batch of refined oil product from the UAE, among others. But with everything that has happened on the economic level, on the level of leadership, governance, the calls for ministers to be cut down, the debt exchange, and the sort of angst that has stirred. Would the opposition even need to engage in propaganda, looking at where we find ourselves, and also considering that you've done your two-term electoral cycle? You would have achieved that by 2024. Would they even need to do that?
Well, certainly we hope they don't have to do that. We hope they'll have to engage in a conversation to suggest to Ghanaians what is it they want to do. Ultimately, that's our hope, that let's have a conversation about what is it the two parties have to offer Ghanaians. And so clearly, that conversation, if they want to engage in that, then we think that we're going to come up tops in 2024. But even if they are not willing to do it, we'll force them to do it, because that's the only option in an election going forward, to make sure that Ghanaians are choosing based on the strength of each political party's ideas, and that's what we'll force them to do if they are not willing to do it. But on account of the relief that is coming, based on the reduction in the fuel prices, the strengthening of the cedi against the dollar, which all of us must be happy about. That, for me, is welcome news, and just tells us that indeed the government, in all ways, is committed to ensuring and has the responsibility to make sure that it improves conditions for Ghanaians. It's a welcome news, and I think it signals that long-term, the measures that government is putting in place would work, and then Ghanaians should continue to have confidence in this government. I am very happy about the proposition in the 2024 budget, which is focused on trying to invest in increasing Ghana's productive capacity. That helps us directly to ensure import substitution, or if you like, reduction of import and increase of domestic production capacity to export. That, for me, is good for Ghana in many, many ways, but primarily to strengthen the cedi and to help create employment opportunities for our young people. That is something that I think we should call on Ghanaians to support, to make sure that we improve conditions for Ghanaians and sustainably try to develop our economy. And I think that these are the conversations that we would like to have from the NDC, and to tell us their alternative to some of these proposals.
So tell me, it's interesting, you say, what does the NDC in opposition have to offer, assuming they are handed the reins of power? Let me put it back to you. What does the NPP, what exactly does the NPP have to offer? And I ask that from the standpoint of having seen, by and large, what this party wants to do, right from the start. 1D, 1F. One district, one factory. Recently, we've been talking about import substitution and cutting, funding to some people or businesses that are importing into the country items that we hope to produce. Recently, I've seen that tissue manufacturer, private enterprise, but being supported by government, as we spend about $100 million every year, $100 million to be specific, importing tissue, toilet roll, and other related products. So 1D, 1F, with its own gargantuan problems. Just to reiterate, in terms of poultry, Ghana has imported over the last 5 years, 2017 to 2021, the most in terms of chicken, more than Nigeria with over 206 million people, more than Ethiopia with over 115 million, more than Tanzania and South Africa with over 59 million people. Ghana with about 31 million people has done that. So 1D, 1F, tick. Has it worked? Planting for food and jobs. Today's Daily Graphic says, despite the Ministry of Food and Agriculture's intervention, food prices still high, building strong distribution channels advocated. It talks about our systems and how they are not necessarily yielding the results that we want to see. Rearing for food and jobs, the chicken bit I spoke about can go there. Free SHS, and it has had its own issues. So I would put it back to you. What exactly does the NPP have to offer going into election 2024?
Thank you very much. In simple terms, what the NPP has to offer is to intensify these ideas you just talked about. We need to invest more in these ideas. You will agree with me that industrializing is not an overnight affair. But what you would also agree is that the proposals that you have just gone through are relevant, are the, if you like, are the absolute right prescriptions that anybody, if you are prescribing a solution to the problems that confronts Ghana today, these are the solutions you'll be prescribing for Ghana. So the essence I want to emphasize for you is that the NPP has the right prescriptions, has the right solutions to solve Ghana's problems. The only thing left is time, which is the reason why, as a party, we're insisting and appealing to Ghanaians to continue to have faith with us and give us more time, because to industrialize will not happen overnight. The sustained investment, you need to apply the policy and make sure you contain that policy, continue to invest in it, develop it, and eventually you arrive at a destination of industrialization. So everything you have mentioned right now is the right prescription for Ghana to be able to come out of the situation we're in now. What we need is a party, a government that can invest in these policy ideas and sustain those investments to be able to yield the results ultimately. You talked about the poultry import that we actually, as a smaller country compared to Nigeria, we import more. It tells you that Nigeria probably is investing.
Well, we have a bit of a challenge there with the feed. We'll try to work.
Has invested in its domestic.
Richard, you can go ahead.
Of poultry.
All right, so we'll try to get Richard Ahiagba back on the line, but he was just sharing with me some of his thoughts on what question I posed to him about what exactly the MPP had to offer or would have to offer in 2024. Mr. Ahiagba, I can hear you now. We lost you for a moment owing to a bad connection. Please go ahead. If you can hear me, Mr. Ahiagba, we lost you for a moment, so maybe you could just go back by some 20 seconds and continue from where you left off.
Yeah, so
well, it appears the feed is not friendly to us today. We'll still try. Do I hear Mr. Ahiagba in the background? Let's try one more time. And if Zoom is not going to be friendly, maybe we just might use a phone call. Yes, I can hear you, Mr. Ahiagba.
Talked about
Okay. So we'll try to do this some other way. At least there are alternatives. We'll try to reach him via the phone lines and see whether that will be more stable as he shares his thoughts with us. But in case you just joined us, we're having a conversation with the communications director of the MPP in the person of Richard Ahiagba. And we started talking about the leadership of the NDC and the MPP. And now we're narrowing it down, talking about what the MPP has to offer. Because a short while ago, Richard was telling me, look, the NDC, Fifi Fiavikwete, is a former propaganda secretary. And so, in essence, his being the general secretary of the party means nothing. They're just going to engage in propaganda. And we call them to the table to debate the issues, what the alternatives are, what they have to offer. And I put the question back to him that, look, your party has brought some flagship programs, 1D, 1F, planting for food and jobs, rearing for food and jobs, and all that. But where have they, left us? And that's the question he was answering. Mr. Ahiagba, can you hear me? Hello, Richard? I think we may have to just do the phone lines. But he was making the point that with all of these flagship programs, it won't be something that just happens within a short period. What I don't know is how short is and how long could be, how long we could be in this pipeline, so to speak. Of course, no country industrializes, by just flipping a coin or something of the sort. But after 6 years, we would see some tangibles. And for me, I'm concerned because when I look at our landscape, even the fact that we've come to this point and we're importing so much and incurring so much of a debt when it comes to these imports, or incurring so much when it comes to our import burden, is very problematic for me. We spend some $10.8 billion every year embarking on this. We probably wouldn't need to go to the IMF if we had that kind of money. Richard, welcome back.
Thank you.
Okay, I think it's clearer now. So you were making a point. Let's do that speedily. This has eaten into our time, the connection problems.
Forgive me. So all I was saying was that the ideas that you talked about, the 1D, 1F, the planting for food and jobs, the free SHS ideas you talked about, those are the right prescriptions for Ghana. If Ghana wants to develop, these are the ideas we need to be investing in. And the MPP has it right by investing in these ideas. And you asked that going forward, what the MPP has to offer, and I was trying to suggest to you, is to intensify investment and the monitoring of these policy ideas to ensure that they yield the result they have to yield in the long term. The goal is that these policies are not short-term policies. They are long-term policies designed to transform the economy from the present import dependency to export-driven economy. And this requires time, which is the reason why the MPP is appealing to Ghanaians to give it more time in 2024 to make sure that we consolidate and build these policies forward.
Don't you feel, because I am expecting as a citizen that 6 years down the line, you can't industrialize in 6 years. You can do a whole lot, but you can't industrialize. But there's the saying that there would be that writing on the wall. You would see signs. I look at all of these programs and I'm wondering where the signs will show up. So aren't you prescribing solutions amiss? And even if these were the right prescriptions, as you say, Mr. Ahiagba, are we having the right implementation? Look at 1D, 1F. I'll go back to it. Some have said it's not cutting mustard. It's not delivering the goods as we would want to see it. And mind you, if we're still talking about import substitution the way we are, rice, tomatoes, we had a project bringing in seedlings from Burkina Faso that fizzled out. We're still importing so much. And I was just making the point that if we were self-sufficient, or at least had increased our self-dependence in these areas, we probably maybe wouldn't need $3 billion from the IMF, looking at our import burden every year, which is $10.8 billion. Do you think we're getting the implementation right?
Well, I think that's part of the democratic conversation that we must have to ensure that in all the discussions we have, including this ones, we are sharing ideas. And remember, minutes ago, I told you about how is it we want to prosecute the 2024 campaign is to be engaged with ideas and see that, okay, how do we ensure that we are getting maximum benefit out of these policies? Policies are not linear. Policies are messy. Policies are very cumbersome. It takes time, it takes engagement, and it takes constant monitoring and evaluation to get them to work. So the first thing you need is to have the policy idea right, which we have gotten. We know there is no arguing the fact that these policies are what we need as a country. Now, the conversation around how we implement them are absolutely a welcome conversation that we must have. But I think that the government is doing well. If you look, you're talking about the writings on the wall. If you look at coming into government in 2017 and promising that we want to do one district, one factory. Today, across this country, you have some number of factories that weren't there before. I think sum total from my last check, about 296 or so, including existing revamped factories, about 125 or so of very new factories have come up on the landscape. This is a writing on the wall that you said, and I my suggestion to you earlier about the way forward for us is to try to increase investment and increase additional or incidental policy support for these small factories to ensure how they are given operating room. For example, is it the president's announcement in his economic address recently talking about efforts to curtail the import of certain commodities, rice, for example, and poultry. And you mentioned poultry, about how is it we import exceedingly more than our friends in Nigeria. That tells you that we have opportunity there. And the president has hit the nail right on the head. Now, what is left is the pursuit of that policy view, which says that we must invest in domestic production of poultry to cut our import, which then saves us.
Sorry to interject, Richard. You're telling me that 6 years into your administration, with only 2 years left, with a flagship program as 1D1F, we're now coming to the realization, we're now having that epiphany that we need to produce so much more. Wasn't that the whole idea right from the start for 1D1F?
Yes, oh, of course. I mean, I'm not suggesting by any stretch that we've just realized. I'm only telling you that the opportunity to to intensify local production capacity, the opportunity that tells you that this policy is right, is that now you can see that we import so much of poultry, which is not just a function of this government's regime, but it's been the way all throughout that our economy is import dependent. And the point I'm trying to make to you is that you have a government in the New Patriotic Party government led by Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo with the right policy prescription that suggests that if we cut import of poultry, for example, import of rice, for example, we have a domestic capacity to be able to produce, to augment the shortage that will be occasioned by the export curtailment, and then be able to then export within the sub-region and to be even across the world, to be able to then earn foreign exchange. So it is for me to emphasize for you that we have the policy ideas, and what we are needing and what we have done so far, this 6 years that you're referring to, is to put these factories in place. What we're going to need going forward is to continue to invest in them, to enhance their capacities, and to be able to increase production to meet the domestic demand, and then possibly export as well.
In any business, and every country is like a large business, there are KPIs for people who work, and there are goals that are set. When you look at 1D1F, and after this I would let us move away from the flagship programs and talk about other matters, don't you think that we should have measurables? So here's what I mean. 1D1F, for example, you say you have 296 or so factories out there. Sometimes we've checked some of these factories and they've not panned out. In Wale Wale, in Savelugu, watermelon processing, rice processing, and others. Some are not even, they've not even taken off. But there are factories that are working. A Kumfi, juice factory, among others. But let's look at the deliverables. So can this administration, can you give me this, that because of 1D1F, X% of our import bill is gone? And maybe why amount of cedis or dollars have been saved as a result of 1D1F? Those are tangibles everybody can relate to. Can you do that?
Well, thank you very much. One of my jobs is to help you get information. And so therefore, this information you've asked, I think is a critical information. I commend you that this is the line of inquiry that we must encourage. To try to hold government accountable, political parties accountable. So this information you're inquiring, I think I know where you can get the absolute answers for this. In addition to what you mentioned about checking some of the factories that probably you may not have gotten the information you need, I will direct you to probably reach out, and if you need my help, I'll facilitate for you to speak with officials from Ministry of Trade and Industry. There's a deputy minister in charge of that and can provide you all the information you need as far as one district, one factory is concerned. But what I can tell you without a doubt from a party side is to say that the policy is right, the policy is consistent with the orientation of the new patriotic party, and we are committed as a party to support the government to ensure the implementation of this and ensure that it yields the absolute benefit that Ghanaians deserve.
Let's talk about other aspects of our economy. In recent times, we've seen the Ghana CD do quite a whole lot on the international market, beating the American greenback and beating, hitting down the fluctuations against the Great British Pound and the American Euro. We've heard Mr. President speak on that as well, but the economists, practically all of them, the academics, the people in the business space have said, hold up, there are factors that result in this. We speculated initially. Speculation is now working in your favor. Don't get too excited. In fact, that wasn't just yesterday. We saw the former president, John Dramani Mahama, also post about the state of our economy. And he didn't mince words, according to him, saying that we're in a very bad place. When it comes to the CD, we're still in December. How well are we faring? What has been done to bring to bear what we are seeing? And is this, more importantly, is this sustainable moving into next year?
Well, thank you very much. I think on the former president, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, talking about Ghana not being in a good place or Ghana being in a bad place, I think I will have to agree with him, except that he won't agree that the whole world is in a bad place. Ghana is in this place because the whole world is in a bad place. And that fact must be accepted if we have to have a conversation objectively going forward. So I think that we can resolve the former president's political comment that way.
So maybe to quote him properly, I was just looking for what he put forth. He said, tragic, ! Ghana officially bankrupt. And of course, we've had to engage in a debt restructuring, debt exchange exercise. Now we're not going to meet our Eurobond requirements. The ratings agencies are downgrading us further into junk status. Is that something you can contest?
Well, that's not something I can contest, but can the former president contest that the world is in a bad place? Does he disagree that the world is in a place that is difficult right now, which is causing Ghana to be where we are now, to be in junk status or whatever it is he describes?
But even as the world is in a bad place, not all countries are on the same level. Others are doing, some are doing better than others. And not all of them are at junk status in credit ratings.
That's fine. That's fine. But then you must begin to have a conversation based on the right premise.
Right.
So if the world is in a bad place and Ghana is in a bad place, then you can link that, yes, Ghana wouldn't have been here, but for the situation the world is in. He must make that connection and then make his point. It is the beauty of argument and political conversation is to concede where you think you have to concede, but they refuse to concede that the world is hurting. I tell you right now, if you check, I think the last time I did, the IMF was talking about needing about 196 billion to be able to help poor countries to be able to come out of the devastation of COVID-19 and the impact of Russia-Ukraine war. Why is that the case? Because something has happened. So the NDC and the former president, respectfully, must begin to make these concessions. Otherwise, we are not having a truthful conversation. I think that you in the media must hold them accountable to come to the table with facts and appreciate where they must appreciate the realities of our time. And we are asking business communities to reduce their prices because something is changing in the business environment. So if something has changed in the global environment, necessitating the pain that we are going through, that must be considered. And we must make the NDC come to this conversation with that admission. Unless they do that, there will be this difficulty in trying to resolve the issues going forward. So clearly, Ghana is in this situation because there is a global hardship. That is the reality. So the commitment of this government, my brother, is to ensure that as much as possible, there is some relief within the policy remit of the government to make sure that Ghanaians get some respite. That is the absolute commitment of the government, and I think that the party is supporting the president and the government vigorously to be able to deliver that. You referenced earlier the press conference by the General Secretary of the party yesterday. The import of that is to assure Ghanaians that government is on the job, that whatever reliefs we are seeing today, government is happy about it because ultimately Ghanaians will get some break. And so we are convinced that in the long term, the city will gain its balance, and with the policies that are promoted in the budget for 2023 will help consolidate and perhaps strengthen the city's position long term, and Ghanaians will have the benefits for it.
Let's stay briefly on the economy. I'd like to find out from you, and shortly I'll also like to talk about the National Cathedral. And in fact, there's an interesting bit by the Domahene. We have the video. At some point, I'll see whether we can play it for you just to trigger that conversation. But talking about an IMF deal, what are the prospects going into next year? Because in that latest release by the Finance Ministry, for the first time, it was admitted that our debt was unsustainable for the very first time, and that both domestic debt and external debt is unsustainable. We also know that as far as the IMF is concerned, there is a precondition for a program to be accepted or for the delivery of a program. A country's debt must be sustainable. My question then is, between now and the first quarter of next year, of course, if we were to get a deal by January, that would be sweet. If not, and by March or any time after that, it could leave us on the ropes, basically. How sure are we that we're going to be able to get a program from the IMF when our debt still remains unsustainable?
Thank you very much. I think the debt sustainability analysis is to be able to figure out how we make our debt sustainable. And the result from the DSA suggests one of two things to do. And one of it is what we began experiencing with the Ministry of Finance announcing a debt exchange program aimed at trying to create room, fiscal room for government to adjust and manage our debt going forward. In addition to that, I guess I'll just veer briefly to the budget, where you saw the minister in the 2023 budget suggest some very severe cuts. Look at a 30% cut to central government expense, some other 13 incidental cuts that were proposed, including the use of fuel by government officials, the use of vehicles, and I think a ban on purchase of new vehicles in 2024 along those lines.
We appear to have lost the feed to Richard once more. We'll just wait patiently as he tries to reconnect with us. But I was asking him about the prospects of an IMF deal, especially as our debt remains unsustainable. Mr. Ahiagwa, can you hear me now? If you can, please go ahead.
Yes, I can hear you.
Please go ahead.
Yes. Yeah, so I don't know where you lost me, but I was just
we lost you for just about
how...
10 seconds, no more.
Okay, thank you much. And so the government is doing a great deal of adjustments fiscally to make sure that our debts gets back on track. The estimation now is probably by 2028 to bring our debt to GDP ratio to about 55% or so. That is something, I guess, that we all have to work hard toward, and government really is putting its expense in the right order to make sure that nothing puts it out of balance. So the external debt, I think you heard also the minister made an announcement of suspending our payments pending negotiations to arrive at some amicable proposition between the two parties to figure out how we deal with our debts going forward. So I think that our debts will be brought to a sustainable level long term. But for the IMF program, I think we've crossed the first hurdle of having a broad agreement at the staff level to say that, yes, the IMF is committed to giving Ghana the needed support. Oftentimes, people will cite the 3 billion as the reason we're going there. That's not necessarily the only, import of the IMF deal that we seek. It's also, to a large extent, to give the market, signal to the market a confidence that Ghana is committed to certain fiscal measures to ensure that its debt is brought to sustainable levels, to be able to continue to engage in development programs, and that if that requires investors coming into the country, they know with the support of the IMF, the commitments we have in terms of fiscal policy will be sustained, and therefore they can have confidence and engage in business in Ghana.
Right.
So in broad terms, I think that our debt situation will be resolved. What I think that we are appealing to Ghanaians as a party in support of our government is to say that let's support the government, the debt exchange program that is announced. I know there are some reservation from Labour. I think from my understanding and a briefing on the matter, there's a full assurance that pensions will not suffer in ways where when people need their pension, they won't have it. You know about the financial, the stability fund that has been established to be able to provide liquidity support to the banks and to all these schemes who are part of the debt exchange, to be able to take care of their liabilities when they fall due. So there isn't anything that anybody is going to lose in a sense of the word, but it's just a temporal, period, especially in 2023, where there is zero payment of interest, only purposely to create fiscal room for government to adjust and to bring its debts into alignment. I think that is something Ghanaians should support, right, and ensure that the government is able to achieve that end.
Right before we get into the National Cathedral, I want us to clear the bit about your party's leadership. Just because you brought in the former president, let me also add, Justin, I often, correct me, I thought his name was Justin Kodua Frimpong, but made to be JFK, or is it Justin Frimpong Kodua? Is that the original name? Because I've seen two versions. Which is it?
Yeah, I don't think he's opposed to any rendition of it.
Okay.
But
right.
I think, but because JFK, so maybe if you arrange it so it ends up being JFK, I think he'll be happy about it.
All right, Justin Frimpong Kodua. Right. He makes mention of the fact that the party, the NDC, and the former president ought to apologize to Ghanaians on the back of the tape by Asiedun Ketia and all of that. I was interacting earlier this morning with PPP's former flag bearer, Bridget Dogbanuku. I posed the question to her, and she asked, to what end? I'll put that question to you as well. He apologizes, and then what? How does that add anything to anything else? We went through that stint. Your party has gone past that. You're in leadership. That doesn't add to our economy. It doesn't change anything. So give us some better understanding on why the party wants the NDC, the former president specifically, to apologize.
Well, the simplest answer to your question is why you would want somebody who offended you to say, I'm sorry. It signals regret. It signals remorse that I will not repeat the same thing. That is critical. It tells us that we can have confidence in the integrity of the NDC. What they did, the magnitude of what it did is not evident to the eye because somehow the good forces of nature saved us from the potential catastrophe that would have launched us into. Who probably won't be here had this situation or the situation created by the NDC telling its supporters to go in the streets and jubilate because to them, they think they had won the election. Imagine a confrontation between NDC supporters who are claiming they have won and NPP supporters who know we have won in the streets. Where would that have left Ghana? That catastrophe was avoided, but we shouldn't take it for granted. Now, if the NDC doesn't come out to apologize for this, they will feel encouraged. they will feel emboldened by that adverse behavior and want to repeat it again. That's why it's significant. So it will be on record. Posterity will judge that NDC misbehaved in an election where they knew they lost, but then posited to their supporters to go out and jubilate, and now was found out through their own confessions that, yes, we lost the election, and because they apologized for it, it will never happen in their history, and will remind them that beware of what you did before and what you apologized for, and don't go back and do it. And if they came to apologize and then subsequently behave that way, then we can say with confidence that the NDC is not a party to be trusted. The NDC is not
Are you presupposing that if in the next election some things come up and they go down the same route, it would mean that they are not being honest? And let me just add this. So does that presuppose that you want some sort of precedent to be set so that for some of these infractions, so to speak, you would want people to apologize? In 2012, you had your own election petition. It failed in court, whatever the margins may be, 5-4. But the court did not side with you. Did you come out and apologize to Ghanaians for that? Was that required?
Thank you. So the apology is not in relation to going to court. It's in relation to the false pretenses under which they went to court. They went to court with zero evidence, right? So that's what we're saying. So the apology is for public morality to record that the NDC misbehaved and came to apologize. And so that is not a behavior any political party should engage in, that you go to court only if you have evidence. And that if tomorrow any political party is thinking about doing the same thing, they would know and learn from the public example of the NDC that that is not the way we want to conduct politics in our country. And most especially, and you would note that the former president.
Hello, Richard?
Knowing very well that he had no evidence to go to. Yes, please, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead.
Sorry about that. So knowing very well they have no evidence to go to court, and the court saw that they had no evidence and ruled unanimously to reject the no evidence case they brought to court, went about assassinating the character of the court, calling them unanimous FC, which was the right decision. Absolutely. Look, if today we have a record from the Supreme Court that's actually ruled on this election 2021 petition by the NDC to say that, oh, it was a 2-3 or 2-5 or 4-5 decision, I will be at a loss to see why is it that the Supreme Court didn't see through that case and somehow people were led to believe that they had any evidence at all. But the good thing we see today is that the NDC itself believed that it didn't have a case, and the Supreme Court saw that it didn't have a case, and so therefore unanimously ruled against them. Now they come out to besmirch the character of the court. I'm saying that that is not a conduct we should encourage. Okay. That is not a behavior Ghana we should encourage. So we should call on them to apologize so that it serves as an example to the MPP, to the CPP, to the PNC, that you don't proceed to court on account of no evidence. Because, it's a serious matter. Election petition is a serious matter. And you talk about the MPP 2013 petition, the outcome of the court case tells you.
Okay,
the evidence that MPP.
Right.
So ultimately, I guess the point I'm making is that it is in the interest of public morality for the NDC to apologize.
Okay. Let's look at the National Cathedral, and I just want to set some precedents to this. We were told that, yes, we would have some seed money provided by the state for the National Cathedral project, but beyond that, it was going to be, religious groupings, private enterprise that would have to chip in. At a point, calls were made for people to contribute 100 CDs every now and then. But in recent times, some of what has been said, the Defense Minister, Dominic Nitiwu, has been saying the cathedral is important because it has religious significance, that there's a reason in Israel 15% of citizens don't work, according to him. They just pray and the state looks after them. We've heard from Mr. President saying that it is prayers that saved us from a civil war, which is why we need a national cathedral. He refers to those who are against the project as Sanballat and Tobias. But with all the hue and cry about the cathedral, and by the way, Parliament has jettisoned the 80 million Ghana cedis that was allocated for the cathedral in 2023 through fierce battles at the committee level, the plenary level. I just want you to listen to what the Domahene had to say and tell me whether the MPP shouldn't consider putting the project on ice or at least doing something else with it. Just stay with us for what the Domahene had to say and give me your reaction.
Akopa nama Ghana for kachirem. Mpasande faso na okachirem ampanyini. Ghana for ba oye pa se.
You swore to God to build a national cathedral in his honor if you won the elections. That's a very good thing to do. However, given the economic difficulties Ghanaians are facing around this time, the people have asked me to tell you to put the project on hold. It's your initiative. No one can take that away from you. But don't use the national coffers to build the cathedral. Tell him to focus on economic recovery so that in good time, even if he's not able to complete it, any of his brothers could do so. That is what Ghanaians want me to tell you.
Richard, what's your reaction to what the Domahene says?
Well, that's a point well noted. I don't think that there's any disagreement in the position of the president, of the government, and of all Christians across this country who support that the cathedral be built.
I've heard Christians come out ferociously speaking against it. One of them, Sam George, you must have heard him yesterday, quoting the Bible against the same cathedral.
Yes, I heard him. But what Sam was saying is in essence to say that Akufo-Addo should not build it. He should not build it or doing their own political stuff. He did not say that a cathedral was not needed. That's not what he said. That's not what he said. So the principle I think we need to proceed from, the position we need to proceed from is that is a cathedral essential? Then we can talk about the incidental matters of the time.
Tell me, Richard, is it essential, especially in our economic situation? Do we need a cathedral here and now?
Well, so you're asking two different questions. You want to ask one question. I'm saying that we should...
No, I'm asking them together. Is it essential?
Well, it'll be difficult. So first of all, is it essential? As a Christian, I'll tell you yes. And you can tell me your answer as a Christian if you said no. Can I have your answer?
My answer to what exactly?
To say that you asked me if the cathedral is essential, and I answered to you that as a Christian, I think it's essential. What would your answer be? I
am a Christian. I don't think it is essential, especially on the back of our economic situation.
No justification. Just the premise that everything is held constant. The question asked to you as a Christian, do you think cathedral is essential? My answer to that is that holding everything constant, yes, cathedral is essential as a Christian. And your answer is what?
Where everything is what? Where everything that is being held constant is what?
The additional questions that you want to ask of the times we're in, if you hold all of those things constant, is a cathedral useful? Do we need it?
I wouldn't say so, no.
Okay. As a Christian, I think that it's useful. Now we can talk about the incident of time and whether or not we should invest this much into it and all of that. Yes, I hear the Domahene is making very solid points. He's not the only person who has made that point. Even in the government, the president understands the time that we're in. If you heard him, the last time he addressed the country, talked about the difficulty which he appreciates without exaggeration. So there is clear understanding of where we are. But you see, resources, there will always be competition for resources. Interest will always be competing for resources over time. So there is never going to be a quiet moment where there is no other thing that needs our resources to be invested in. And so therefore then will be a good time to build a cathedral. I understand that maybe the urgency of now may compel these conversations to be hard to say that let's put it on hold. But the construction of this cathedral, incidentally, is providing employment for people. If you, on your screen right now, as you're showing me, there are people there who are working, whose livelihoods we don't factor in to say that they are Ghanaians working to produce or to build some infrastructure on our landscape, whose completion will also continue to create jobs.
So let me just make this quick point. Pardon me, my sincere apologies, but work on the cathedral has stalled for quite a while now. There's been absolutely no work going on for quite a while, as I know it. So I don't know whether anybody would be there earning a living or because no one is working.
No, you just showed me a picture.
No, but these are from the past. These are not current. These are from the past.
So, but that is even more to my point, to say that if work has stalled because of these agitations, stop it, you just saw human beings working to dig that foundation. If work was ongoing, wouldn't they be earning income? So that's just the point I'm making. I'm not saying that you should build it for them to earn it, but I'm saying that what is happening there, if you stop it, that's somebody's livelihood who is also a Ghanaian. The idea is for us not to engage in this sectional argument. There is essence for the cathedral. If we're having a conversation to say that let's not build it now because times are difficult, absolutely. What I would say we'll do is that let the private sources of funding that the cathedral administrators are engaged in, let them intensify that effort. Let all of us as Ghanaians engage in supporting the cathedral if we find it useful, to make sure that they continue to build it. But let's not get to a point where we are politicizing the building of it and making it appear as if it is a sin to want to build. I heard some George. There are quotations in the Bible that will contradict what he's saying. It's dangerous when we're engaging in this conversation to say that we're building a cathedral is a vain exercise. I don't think that as a Christian, I see the building of a cathedral as a vain exercise. That is a difficult call for me to make. One of the hopes that we have as human beings is our belief that beyond here, there's a place we're going. Whether it is true that there is life after death, whether it's true the proposition of the Christian religion is true, I take comfort in that because I cannot divine the answers to that question today. So I take solace in that idea to say that somehow there is hope for me beyond here. Let's not deny that to Ghanaians. If we are trying to create a national consciousness that tells us that we believe in something beyond here, and let's conduct ourselves responsibly in ways that will make us good candidates for the world beyond, let's not deny our fellow citizens the opportunity to be conscientized in that direction. What I want to submit to you, that beyond all the political conversations we are having to denigrate or to demonize the building of the cathedral, I tell you that by that structure, once we build it, the consciousness it gives to Ghanaians has potential to help us in improving law enforcement, in creating awareness in people that as a country, we believe in certain set of values, and those values may hold us accountable in our conduct.
In other words, Richard, you're telling me that we are who we are, but the cathedral, merely having the cathedral will give us that sense of religion or consciousness of God and make us better?
I just told you about public morality, which is necessary for the NDC to apologize. There are certain things we do at the micro level that is useful. At my own personal level, I have a belief that is private to me. But if the country is elevating and trying to put on its landscape a national consciousness of godness and saying that as a country we believe in God in a certain way that was not dramatized for us before, but at a national level, we have built this monument for God that brings to focus to those who don't even appreciate that conversation, those who may disagree or may have contrary view to that God conversation, may then suddenly begin to get into the notion of accepting and thinking a bit more that even if I doubt the situation here, my country is building a monument for that God that I don't believe in. Somehow, it has a way of seeping into our consciousness to say that maybe I should take this thing a bit more seriously.
Okay, let
doing many things.
So sorry to interject. We're wrapping the conversation. Before I take your final thoughts in some 30 seconds. So we've expended almost 400 million Ghana cedis on the cathedral as it is now. We also are looking at the fact that actually we have the biggest cathedral in Ghana up north. Why don't we prioritize one like that and maybe make it better for touristic purposes and even to spread development across the country? Everything is concentrated in Accra. We have a cathedral up north that is the biggest in the country. Why not do that? And looking at how much we've expended with practically empty hands, we have nothing to show yet.
Well, if you have a foundation, it means you are building something. And it is after the foundation that you see the structure. So when you are building a foundation, it doesn't mean you don't have anything. You have a foundation, and that's what you have. And you must have a good foundation to have a good structure. So let's not. I think that answers your question of we don't have anything. We have a solid foundation to build on. The idea that you're suggesting about a cathedral up north and the need to spread development, I think that absolutely is the vision of this government. We just created 6 new regions for purposes of spreading development and making governance be close to people. In fact, there's a deliberate policy in these 6 new regions to not concentrate development at the regional capital, but to spread them across the region. You saw for the first time in our history, a president that moved the national independence celebration out of Accra. We had Tamale, we had Kumasi, we had Cape Coast. That is the awareness that we must spread development. So certainly, these are interesting conversations to have. We should be having those. And my idea of a critical political conversation or communication is to begin to engage in ideas, and some of which is what you are doing. So even though you are in the media, your view is critical, your propositions are critical, we should take those and input all of those things in policy thinking, and ultimately we'll come out with the best ideas to help develop our country. So yes, that's certainly a good idea. Right. It doesn't mean when we build a national cathedral, we can't build a regional cathedral.
To cap off the conversation, so what are your final words? What can we expect from the MPP?
We can build a regional cathedral.
Right. What are your final words, Richard? What can we expect from the MPP in 2023? Can we look forward to anything better, economically speaking? Final words in some 30 seconds. Did you get that, Richard?
Oh, no, you're suggesting what you can expect from the MPP in 2023, you said?
Yes, economically speaking, and basically from the party. What can we expect in 2023?
Yeah, certainly there should be a lot happening in 2023. The budget I'm excited about in 2023, especially because of its emphasis on building domestic capacity to export. I think that would be good. It would help us cancel a lot of the expense of forex that goes out, and those will stay in and help create employment for our Ghanaians through the production, and also help stabilize our city. And also, once our city stabilizes, it then helps our debt to come down. You saw that recently we're having a conversation, our debt to GDP ratio in excess of 500 billion or so. Now, with the recent strengthening of the city, it's come down by several billions of dollars, several billions of cedis. And so that is a significant improvement that helps us recalculate our debt to GDP just by strengthening our city. So any effort aimed at ensuring that we as a people, we are consuming more, producing more, and limiting our dependence on import will help our economy stabilize and create more jobs. 2023, right. I see much of this happening, and I entreat Ghanaians to support this government, have faith that in spite of the challenges, they should count it that the MPP is committed and remains the best option for Ghana in terms of development and freedom.
Richard Ahiagba is Communications Director of the NPP. Richard, Mr. Ahiagba, thank you so much for having joined us on the AM show.
Thank you kindly.
Right. And that has been our discourse, but stay with us because coming up next, we have the next leg of our big stories. We're going to be discussing the cedi-dollar romance. The cedi gained quite a lot. It has also sustained some losses in recent days. What can we look at? We'll also be telling you about the E-Levy Act. Parliament has been taking a look at that, and there's an amendment to it after government beat a hasty retreat. We'll also tell you about, of course, the 1.5% that has been reduced to 1%, and the threshold that was removed now being reinstated. So look forward to that conversation after the break. But before we go, the Frital Joy FM Family Party in the Park is the perfect place for your family. So the date is December the 26th, just a few days away. The venue is Ibri Botanical Gardens. The time is 9 a.m. till you decide to knock off. The rate is a cool 100 Ghana cedis for a family of 6. You can purchase your tickets from the Joy FM front desk or dial the short code *713*003#. Select one, select Joy Party in the Park, or call 0265 125 3184 for inquiries. The Joy FM Party in the Park is sponsored by Frital Sunflower Cooking Oil. Enjoy the goodness in tasty meals. Fortune Rice, always on point, just like mom. Alliance Life Insurance. We secure your future. Syntax Tank, a strong, a tough, and supported by ATL, bringing fabrics to life. Mobile Doctors Ghana, the doctor at your home. Ghana AIDS Commission, condomless sex is risky. If it's not on, it's definitely not in. Coa Mixture, the medicine that works. Joy FM Family Party in the Park, your number one family outdoor event. For tickets and reservations, please call 0540 106 466. We take a breather. We return after the break.